Hello, this is National Chess Master R. Rats at chess.com. Analyze a game submitted by pcfilho. Anyway, this is for my member submit best games thread in the group at chess.com. National Master R. Rats free video lessons. I'm accepting everybody's best game, or just a game that you want to find out what you did wrong or how can you do better. I'm taking them all. This was played against, as you can see, a Computer 3 hard. Got to be careful with this thing. It's pretty bad, but it can sometimes play good moves. I had a draw against it. I should have lost, but it didn't know how to play the ending. And other than that, I've whipped it every time. And it plays a time control of 10 moves. I'm sorry. You get 10 minutes in a 10-second increment, and I tend to play too quick against it anyway. But if you're trying to pick up some rating points, this is it. But be careful. I know it's bitten a lot of people. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, so we're looking at a game against a computer, and obviously it doesn't think. It's not a human being. It's just going to make reactionary moves. So we can critique White's play and not suggest improvements for Black necessarily, because Black's not here to see what I have to say and change his play. So it's basically a one-sided affair here. Okay. The computer really gets out of book, I think, no matter what you play against it. So anything's good, just develop. Now, the computer goes and moves a piece twice. That's a violation of an opening principle. Now the computer plays d5. Now, how do we deal with a move like this? What do we do? Okay. What is a general rule, and I quote it many times, don't make moves that develop your opponent's pieces. Okay? Don't do that. All right? What White does is he captures on d5, and I think this is fundamentally wrong for a number of reasons. First off, it gives Black the option to take back with this pawn. Okay, after White takes, it gives Black the option to take back with the pawn, thereby activating a diagonal for the light squared bishop. So when you play any game, you want to consider a candidate move, and generally this is a little too quick of a time control that I prefer to do a game on. I'd rather see a standard game, but this is what you submitted, so this is what you get. Okay, but my advice is to play longer time control games and actually stop and think. And because there's no timestamp on these games, I don't know how long you thought against this. I know I tend to play it quickly, but for me it's an easy computer to beat, except for one time. But anyway, what else can we do besides exchanging this pawn and either redeploying this knight to a better square or activating this? Well, we have a threat on e4 we might want to consider covering. How can we cover that? Well, the simplest way is to develop a piece. Okay? There's nothing in the world wrong with knight c3. There's also nothing in the world wrong with pawn to c3. Both of those are reasonable candidate moves that guard the piece. There's one other possibility, and that's rook e1. But it leaves White with an undeveloped queenside. So I'm thinking knight c3 is perfectly logical here. Okay, I think that's a better move choice. Always develop. Okay, don't make exchanges that improve your opponent's pieces. Okay, so anyway, he took, and let's just back up for a second. Let's play fair here. Okay, gotta go one more move up. What happens if White does develop a piece? Okay, Black is left either with developing moves or making an exchange in the center. Okay, let's make the exchange in the center. Okay, now that's just one possible variation. This is how you analyze a chess game. You look at a variation. Now, Black needs to develop, but Black's not human. Okay, so if you push the pawn to e5, it might become a target. Then this knight can draw back to e7, and this knight back to c6. The queen can get to c7, and Black's crawling all over that pawn. White's not without play of his own, and he can hold on to it by a lot of means. Rook e1, maybe bishop f4, and if we get rid of that knight, the moment it drops back to c6, we can get queen e2 in, and then we might have this useful square e4 to redeploy this knight. That's the advantage of developing the knight, because then the knight can come into play, get into a better square pointed towards the enemy king. Okay, so if Black exchanges on f3, that develops the white queen, so we're good with that. And then we have potential moves like rook d1 attacking the queen, or maybe save that move, develop this bishop, and then use the other rook over there. Okay, so these are just some potential different choices. C3 is playable move. The point. Let's back up on move. The point of C3 is that either black puts the knight back where it came from, and then white goes about his ways to develop. Let's just look at that. We've got to put it on the board. Okay. Either black comes back, and now then white deals with the weakness on e4, and queen c2 or knight bd2 will transpose right into a King's Indian attack, something I've been playing, and there's a whole thread on it in our group forums, and I need to update that. But if you really want the games bad enough, before I get them there, they're in my history. Okay, my games history, because I've been playing this opening, trying to teach it to everybody. So there's a chance to transpose into the King's Indian attack here. And if black takes instead, well, we just, like I said, develops the queen, and white's doing fine here. So I think taking on d5 wasn't the best move. Okay, well, I'm going too far back. Okay, so he takes. Now black, the computer chooses to take back with the knight. I don't think it's the best move, but it's what the computer played. Okay, well, why isn't it allowing? Why isn't it moving? Why isn't it moving? Okay, let me reload the PGN. Okay, let's try it that way, see if it fixes it. Okay. There it goes. Okay. Now, white's got a completely undeveloped queen side. So we can consider kicking that knight out of there. Now would have a pawn weakness on d3, but it's not going to be in any danger. Often in the King's Indian defense, black will have a backward pawn on d6, and he's quite fine with it. So white plays rook e1, and if anything, you could play bishop d2 with the idea of bringing this knight to c3, and we'll examine that in a moment, why that might have been an alternative. Okay, bishop e7. Now, white could have had the bishop on d2 and brought the knight to c3, but he brings the knight instead to c3 now. And now when black captures, white has accepted some double pawns. And there was no reason to accept double pawns when you don't have to. You're also trading pieces here. And one thing I preach is it's good to keep your pieces on the board and get them developed, because you can do more things with your pieces, or you want to try to do more things with your pieces than your opponent can do with his. So if you're playing against a human something about your ability, you've reduced your winning chances. Now you can still win, he can still blunder, but exchanging pieces reduces your winning chances. You want more of them on the board. Yeah, your losing chances go up when you keep your pieces on the board, but aren't you trying to win? Simple question. Okay, but now white's accepted double pawns, and he didn't have to. That's the point I want to make. White technically has a weakness on c3 and on a2 now, and the black position doesn't really have a weakness. But the black is not developed, and he starts working on that. White develops the piece, and black needs to try to figure out how to finish his queen side off. The b7 pawn is pinned, so, and if the rook goes to b8, he can maybe then plan to put the pawn on b6, and that seems to be a reasonable idea. And then your black is trying to equalize. He'll get the bishop out, and he can also oppose this long diagonal with this bishop. Black, the position is equal if black goes that way, and it probably still is even here. Black makes a threat, but he's not threatening to get his queen side developed yet. He's just got one piece out, and white protects his bishop, and then black goes pawn hunting. Now it's just a computer; it's materialistic. I think white makes a fine choice. Just give up the queen. He's trying to mate him, and black snatches a pawn. So white's got some reasonable play here, and he goes and threatens a mate in 1, okay, with c4. Now, the bishop can't defend the mate because nothing's guarding it. The defensive power of a pin piece is purely imaginary. If bishop f6, white just takes it, and black cannot recapture. So here comes the big surprise of this game. The game now takes on an entirely new flavor. Okay. Black's, or the note submitted by white, and the best I can say is white just blundered here. I don't think this was intentional, but his note says, here I ignore the threat on my queen and play bishop takes pawn on e5. I'm followed by rook takes pawn on b7. I now have a huge disadvantage in material, but already one rook on the 7th rank with the other one almost there, and the 2 bishops to support them. 12 moves after the sacrifice, checkmate. So white's going to lose his queen and win. Well, okay. I kind of think he's saying this tongue-in-cheek because, and probably white just missed the fact that his queen is hanging, and gobbled the pawn, resuming all the threats, because it's not a sound sacrifice. If it worked out, if it was planned, but it's not sound, because black is just up ahead, basically ahead of queen here. White doesn't have enough compensation. Okay, so here we've got the position he's described. He's got his rook on the 7th rank, another rook ready to get there, and supported by 2 bishops. But you're also down a queen, and you got a threat. You're attacking the bishop on f6 or on e7, but it finds a new home. Okay, now white plays bishop d6. Now this is just a computer. We can't explain why it does what it does, but it gives back some material here. Okay, and it takes a pawn, and it's got an attack on another pawn. So white grabs some material back. So what does he have now? Well, he's got 5 pawns, so does black. White has an extra rook, but black has an extra bishop. So white has, let's see, a rook for a queen and a bishop. That's still not enough. And white's down to 3 pieces, and now black has the 2 bishops. So let's see what happens. White makes an attack, and nothing wrong with bringing the bishop back to h6, but it's a computer. It goes and attacks a rook. Now at least, what else was playable here? Well, probably nothing wrong with bishop d8. That keeps white from putting his rook on e1 on e7. But it's a computer. It thinks differently. It values attacking the rook. And this is why I say this sacrifice is unsound. A human thinks differently than a computer, and this computer is programmed to, it won't miss one movers, but it will eat material. And I guess its priority is to attack rather than to defend. So bishop d8 just wins outright. This move gives white a breath of hope. Okay? And now the computer, being a computer, it has a pawn and it takes it. And then white brings a bishop into play. So all of a sudden, white was down to 3 pieces. They're all ready to try to do some damage. And at this point, black has a completely winning game. All black has to do is bring this bishop back to e6. And let's see. White doesn't have enough. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. Let's look at it. Bishop e6. Okay, we take. Now, white cannot afford to take the pawn on h7 because black will give up the queen. And then black's going to have a rook and a bishop, and white will have nothing. So if black plays this, black is winning. But black doesn't understand what's going on. Black is just a machine. But if you're playing white, you don't want to give up your queen because a human is going to find the better move. You know, have some fun against the computers, but especially this one. Maybe it's easy rating points. But the computer says, "Oh, I don't want to lose a couple pawns." It doesn't think far enough ahead to see what it can do. So it didn't play that. It played bishop c3, and now suddenly white's in the game, and black's in trouble here. White's probably still okay. Uh, One way black can win this is just to simply play queen takes bishop. Okay, if black does this, the human would do it. Black shouldn't have had to get into this, but black has two bishops for the rook, and that's usually a decisive advantage. Actually, look, rook takes rook now. That wins. What's after queen take? White's going to have to take this with check first. We can't lose the rook. Okay, but now, even though white has a passed pawn, black does too. White is not going to be able to queen that pawn. Black can grab a pawn or two here, but that c5 pawn is going to get very, very embarrassing for white in a minute or two. Okay, how does white proceed here? He's got two candidate moves. Shove the d pawn or snatch the a pawn. Which one? We'll look at both. Okay, if d6, it's a computer. Who knows what it'll do? Let's just... Oh, wait, it's black's move. Okay, so we'll save those candidate moves. Let's find a good move for black. Let's put the bishop on e5. Let's stop the pawn from going to d6. And let's keep the rook from going to c7. Okay? Now let's look at one line. Let's snatch the pawn. Well, passed pawns must be pushed. Okay, that pawn's going to be a powerhouse in a moment. Let's get the king over there to help. Okay, here it comes. Here it comes. Now, the white king can't get any closer. He's gone as far as he can because the bishops basically own this board. So it's time to bottle white up. Bishop f3. We'll just sit with that pawn and try and improve our position a little bit. What can white do? He can't do anything. He can maybe bring his rook back to the back rank, but he's got to be careful. Then maybe c2. Well, wait a minute. Let's just forget bishop f3. Let's play c2. Okay, now the king comes up. Now we'll park the bishop on d1. Now what does white do? You play king c1. Now we got to get this bishop's got to be able to check somewhere. I don't know. Maybe this isn't the best, but it's a computer. It's not going to see things. This is good exercise to figure out how the bishops can dominate. I don't want to spend any more time on it. But that would have won for black. Just give back the queen. But the computer's not capable of making these decisions. Anyway, here, like I say, he's got to take on d5, and it doesn't. It gives this. Oops. It gives this check, and then white comes up, and then black just messes himself up. Now he finds bishop e6. Too late. And now sees he's in trouble. Gives up the queen. It's basically the reason it does these moves. It sees it's busted, and it's delaying things. Computers have been doing this for years. From the moment it's busted, it starts delaying checkmate. And there's basically no move, and white wins. So I wouldn't try this strategy again. Be careful with these computers. They're sneaky. E5 was kind of a sneaky move. It attacked your queen, and if you sacked it on purpose, you took a big gamble, and it paid off. But be careful. Anyway, it was an interesting game. I'm glad you submitted it. A little different for those that want to play computers. There's what, computer easy, computer medium, and then there's what's the strongest one? Computer impossible. I haven't tried computer impossible yet. Maybe one day. I've played computer hard, and it's too easy, and I'm almost embarrassed. My standard rating is like 1973, and the strongest machine I beat was computer hard. So, yeah. but I haven't played any tournament games here on this site. That's why that's why you haven't beaten anybody good. Okay. Anyway, thanks so much for your time. I'll get this uploaded and hopefully White can learn something from this because with these notes, particularly about the opening. Don't trade pieces like that. Get your guys out. All right. Thanks for your time. Take care.